Hello! Welcome to the next revlog. This is going to be a very bodged version of my yearly theme roundup for the year because, boom, I've got places to go. I'm actually doing this on my way to the shop before work because I want some snacks for work, and I think I might buy some orange juice to have before work tomorrow as well. So I must drive. Because I must drive, I can't have the light on, so you're not going to be able to see me very well. Because I'm driving, I'm not going to have the props that I kind of had. And also the audio is going to be even more janky. So, with all of that said, let's get into it, shall we? 2025 Year of Foundation. Overall, I have made progress in the direction of Foundation. Foundation being in several areas, a physical foundation to be able to do what I want to do physically, build strength, endurance, etc., to make it closer to my goals. A foundation from which I'll be able to get my black belt is pretty much the goal, and I've made good progress, which is mainly in the endurance area and recovery area for the chronic fatigue stuff, because I can now do more before I feel like an episode, so to speak, come on. But also, whilst I can do more before that point, I can do stuff more frequently as well, therefore indicating that I likely have a much greater recovery than I did before. Both of which are still not where they were pre-chronic fatigue, but I think I'm approaching shortly pre-chronic fatigue because I was living a very, very sedentary lifestyle at that point and had very, very little in the way of sunlight. My nutrition was there, but it was all very processed, etc. Yeah, so that was my pre-chronic fatigue, but what I'm really thinking about when I'm going to be back to that foundation is sort of pre-office job. Maybe not like peak lockdowns, because I do believe that was when I was technically fittest, probably not strongest, but in terms of overall fitness, I think that's when I was at my best. But if I can get to that pre-office job level of physicality, then I will be happy with my foundation, so to speak. But that also includes fixing the injuries that I had at that point, so I'll be slightly better than I was then in terms of performance and structure. So physically, foundation's coming along pretty reasonably. I've done, I'd say, probably slightly better than I anticipated this year, which is obviously never as much as I would want, because having anticipated it to be this much is like an amount would be, this is a reasonable amount for me to go, considering all of the various variables that I can account for, and then just adding a little bit extra for ones that I can't. Largely, I put that down to my supplements, which brings us on to the second stage of the year of foundation, being finance. The financial foundation has been tough. It's not been a great year for me financially speaking. I went from getting paid at a certain percentage above minimum wage to 1/5 of that percentage above minimum wage when minimum wage changed. Obviously, when minimum wage changes, all the prices change accordingly pretty quickly, so that has meant that whilst I'm technically getting more money, the extra money isn't actually buying as much as it would have done before. Thankfully, the bills haven't really changed in that time period, but I imagine at some point over the next year they will. meaning I really need to have more savings and stuff for if they begin to reach a point that they'll start to outpace my actual income. And if that were to happen, then obviously I'd need to look at some sort of drastic change if it starts to approach that point. However, there were various other issues that caused sort of extra, undue, unnecessary expense, and whilst they were completely out of my control for the most part, though some of them were under my control as leisure activities, I'm still glad that I went on at least one this year. I did 2 big ones that were both kind of expensive. I'm glad I did at least one of those this year, just because I feel like I needed it. Both of them had their ups and downs in terms of overall experience, but I imagine most holidays do, as that is the closest to a holiday that I've had in a while. In fact, I would argue that one of them at least was a holiday. Regardless, I think they were useful expenses, though worthwhile, justifiable expenses. Due to the unexpected ones, the ones that were less in my control, I effectively have had, credit card debt all year. However, that's currently fully paid off, and I've changed it to take the full amount I spend on it every month. So I'm effectively keeping extra money in the bank account that it's going to draw from, and however much extra is in there, I'm like, okay, that's my credit card allowance this month, so that I don't get into a situation where I'm constantly using it. I use it, it gets paid off, therefore doesn't accrue interest, and also will work towards better credit score, perhaps. Maybe. Then we got honestly, they were the main foundation points. Trying to remember what the board looked like. I know on there love was a thing. Updated this year. However, there was a key difference about things that we desired for the future, so it didn't work out, which is very sad. And as of recently, I believe that I may only have 1 or 2 close friends who are also single, with most of them being in a long-term relationship, engaged, or married, with some of them being in sort of newer relationships, which, wild. Yet it's okay, because I love me, and romantic love, I'll have time for it later if I've got to wait for it later, you know. What else was on there? Well, in a specific point, there was Kung Fu. It's on the board every year in one way or another. This year, I know that I had to get my blue belt, which I did. It's been, I think, 7-8 months now since I got it, because it was March, April time, I think. Maybe. Regardless, I managed to do that. I was very happy to have done that, and now I'm very happy with the progress I'm making towards Grey Belt, which is my next one, and spoilers for the next yearly theme video, and sorry for not doing one last year, at least I couldn't see one from last year. Yeah, it is gonna be on there again. And so, once I got the blue belt, I updated the board with a okay, we've got to work towards grey now, you know. And there are certain things in the total set of syllabi for my style of Kung Fu that I really do need to brush up on, and these are things usually that I just can't really train on my own, and we can't train do regular Wednesday sessions for whatever reason. Usually that is due to there not being thick enough mats, which they do now have, but they're upstairs and means separating the class out more and instructor attention and stuff like that. So we don't really do it at the regular Wednesday sessions at all. So those things I really will need to brush up on, especially before my black belt, because as far as I'm aware, black belt is literally everything. How much of any particular thing depends on how your instructor feels and wants you to do. So it could be 3 hours of kicks followed by forms, and then just like 20 minutes, do one of each punch or something like that, along with all the other bits and bobs. Oh no, the fire brigade. Then grey belt has all of the hand strikes, all of the leg strikes, and 9 other headings. And I think I'm happy with a good portion of all of them. So we've got the first 2 headings are effectively blocking, not drills, but games. So one of them, someone punches at you and you're not allowed to punch back, but you can block. There's various tempos and other pacing aspects to it. And then the other one is the same, but they're kicking, not punching. You can't hit back, but you can block. Various pacing, tempo things. Then there is a drill that I absolutely despise and have. It doesn't feel right to me in any way, shape or form, and I can't understand why we do it. Surely there are better ways to train and or test the thing that it's meant to test for. And yeah, I can't practice it on my own, so I'm not super confident on it, and I don't like practicing it because it feels dumb. So yeah, I think that I'm just going to have to accept I'm probably going to score quite poorly on that, and I need to be really good at everything else to bring the score back up again to a high enough point, because not only do you have to actually show better technique, more stuff, like better stances and everything, but not only are those like marks harder to get, but you need more of them as you get higher up, which does make sense. But not being able to have that like buffer is not something I really thought about until recently. But having a buffer in the syllabus of, you might be really bad at this one thing, but if you make up for it by being really good at this thing, you can still pass. That doesn't mean you never have to improve at that thing that you're really bad at. It just means that for now you can keep going, learn new things, and work on that more as you go. Which is one of the reasons why I'm quite happy to go back with the rest of the class and practice stuff on the lower belts sometimes, because yeah, I've already done it hundreds, maybe thousands of times, but I still can't do great kicks that are very high. That's a hip mobility issue, largely, but as my hip mobility is eking out year after year a tiny fraction more, I'm able to, well, you know, go from practicing the technique at this angle to practicing the technique at this angle, which is very similar, but is going to require some adjustments, and it's really useful. Similarly, there are other techniques that I might not be so good at due to like not practicing them very often, such as a lot of the stuff we only do right-handed, so if we practice a left-handed variation of it, which sometimes gets thrown in, that's really useful for me. Then there's sparring 2 people at once, pretty confident with that. There's an escape drill, pretty confident with that. Out of the breaks I've learned, I'm pretty confident, but I know there are more. I'm getting very confident with the sword form now. I'm moderately confident with the crane form, and moderate is the low end of moderate, but it is moderately comfortable. Then what else even is there? Oh yeah, hand strikes and the leg strikes, I'm pretty confident with those. The hard part is, if it is, do a different one each time, remembering them all without forgetting any or repeating any is quite hard, because there's 28 and 24 respectively. So I try, I remember how many there are, so I should be able to get the number right. And then when I go through it, I try to go through it in a certain order, so then that way, hopefully, on the grading, if he says a different one each time, I can just go through it in that order, and I'll remember more. It's kind of like learning it like a form. So it's like, move 1 is this punch, move 2 is that punch, move 3 is this punch, and so on and so forth. The entrance techniques will have to differ depending on who I'm doing them against, though, but that's fine. There's a drill that is combination application, and I am quite confident with that because I've sort of memorized 16 and should hopefully be able to do the same sort of thing. If he's like, okay, different one each time, go around. I would be surprised if he asked me to do more than 16. I'd be surprised if he asked me to do 16, but that's 8 in a gate, 8 out of the gate. So, you know, he might say, if I'm just doing all in a gate ones, I might get to like the 4th one or the 5th one, he might say, okay, and outer gate, to show outer gate ones, and then I'll have 8 of those that I can show, if he wants more of those than the inner gate ones. Then we have more stuff. What is the more stuff? Off the top of my head, it's not coming to me right now, but I am mostly focusing on driving. Love traffic. This is all because of the roadworks. Regardless. Yeah, that's sort of the roundup on the Kung Fu side of the yearly theme. Can't presently think of much else by the way of like foundation. I'm building a foundational knowledge to help me with my chronic fatigue, and I am sort of managing to get back into research a bit better now, so hopefully I'll get to a point one where I can make like better progress faster and so on, and perhaps go from like having chronic fatigue to not only defeating it but fully reversing it and having anti-chronic fatigue, chronic energy. Maybe, who knows, but yeah, that foundational knowledge is coming in handy. I do think that I will benefit from busting out the old flashcards, writing some headings and stuff, and making a little deck for myself with the old fountain pen, if I can find it, because I did find that actually was very useful for me whilst I did revision A levels, especially the like pure information stuff. It's like, okay, put a question on one side and the answer on the other side, get someone to read the question without me obviously looking at the card, and then I give them the answer whilst they read it, so that way they don't have to have the subject knowledge. My grandfather used to help me with that. Yeah. You can also just do it on your own, but it's much less interesting, and I think less memorable if you do it on your own. But I don't have any evidence of that yet. Once I get my neuroscience knowledge, maybe I will. I think that I will end up having to skip straight from my current books, which are like, I think, pretty generic starter books for, oh, you want to learn about neuroscience. I think I'll go from there to the peripheral nervous system, because I do believe that is probably the area that is causing the most fatigue issues. Whatever. Well, I'm going to finish this soon, because it's nearly 20 minutes. Jeez! They also I'll get out of the traffic, and then I'll soon be at the shop. But I'm going to finish it with a sort of sneak peek preview thing for the 2026 theme. So, yearly theme 2026 is going to be some form of devotion theme, and I'm effectively going to be taking it in a bit more of a spiritual direction than usual, but it also does have those physical aspects to build upon the year of foundation. So, devotion is largely like a self-worship almost. Not quite as, I suppose, blasphemous as self-worship, but it is the idea of I hate roundabouts. No, devotion will be the idea of everything being about. It's the most selfish one I've got, I suppose. It is the art of being selfish without being an arsehole. All as the yearly themes are, they are like meant to be guiding lights, north stars, compasses, directions, or just guidance on decisions that you have to make throughout a year. Devotion is about myself, but it's framed in a specific way. Like, the word devotion does have some connotations, and I am sort of going to be playing into those, I think. So I've got a little document that I've made, and I will eventually put on the board properly, because I have wiped the board clean. I know it's not even like December yet, but people will be putting up Christmas trees and stuff, and I need time to adapt to a new theme. So given how busy things seem to be at the moment, I'm doing that. Yes, so to further my devotion statement, there is going to be like that introspective type of element to it, meditation, trying to focus on self-therapy, other methods of self-improvement, mental well-being, etc. I'm not like struggling in the terms of mental well-being at the moment. However, I don't want to reach a point where I am, and also I think that being in a state of not struggling isn't the best that I could be. I think that there are probably a lot of things throughout my life that I probably need to like actually deal with. Something that I've done some of this year, but I think continuing to do more of that will be good. And so there is that. And then playing into those connotations of devotion, I am going to be trying to treat my training, including rest, including nutrition, as sort of like ritual. So, in a sense, when I wash, that is not just the cleaning of my body, but that will be an act of service to myself, you know? Very much self-love, I suppose. But then training, that is not just me working on my health and capability, but again playing into sort of I have a purpose, I need to be fit for that purpose. We'll call this worship, you know? There are various other bits and bobs that play into that same sort of theme and everything. So like I've got I can't think of any examples right now, but they're on my piece of paper, okay? But yeah, that's that. And then I'll also be looking at the divine masculine, divine feminine sort of aspects to more intentionally lean into areas of those. Again, this feels more intuitive of a theme than rigid. They're more flexible, but that's okay, you know. And whilst I've not made the board yet, so I've not finished out all of the specific details, I'm looking forward to starting it. But regardless, I'm nearly at the shop, so I'll catch you cats on the flip flop. Goodbye.